The IGN review for Monster Hunter Wilds is so ridiculous and it's so brainlet that I'm gonna tell you that they gave this game a lower score than Concord. You may not believe me, and I'm gonna show you that I'm telling the truth. Let's go.
After the massive success of both Monster Hunter World and Monster Hunter Rise, it makes sense that Capcom would do whatever it can to welcome that wider audience into the next frontier.
Yeah.
That's exactly what Monster Hunter Wilds does, smoothing out the already excellent process of turning big scary dragons into silly little hats to be faster, more flexible, and less fiddly than ever before. The other side of those dual blades, however, is that Wilds is light on any real challenge, even for what I'd expect at launch, never asking me to think hard about my equipment. But while the monsters may not pose much of a threat this time around, smart tweaks to combat still mean the act of carving them up has rarely felt better.
Well, I mean, at one point did you do the game? I mean, did you mainly do regular or did you do the new game plus? The new game plus definitely makes it a lot more interesting. I remember this in the other previous Monster Hunter that they did, which was really fun, by the way. I liked it a lot. What was it called? Worlds, I think.
My first surprise in Wilds was that the campaign isn't just a totally forgettable excuse to kill anything that crosses your path this time. Okay, it's still mostly that as you explore yet another uncharted land to solve some mystery, but while the story itself isn't particularly fresh, the difference here is that the characters within it are actually pretty great. Whether it's the excitable engineer Gemma,
We are so gonna talk later, pal.
your empathy
Oh, bro, the art that I've seen for Gemma is something else.
pathetic handler Alma,
But I definitely
Her too.
or the total space cadet of a biologist Eric,
This forest is amazing.
your team is full of likable personalities and little character arcs throughout the gorgeously animated cutscenes.
See? Told you they'd be fine.
And that was enough to get me more invested. The revamped structure of Wilds also means that campaign is significantly shorter than I was expecting. I reached the credits in just 15 hours and didn't have to fight a single monster twice in that time.
15 hours, bro. That's a while. Wait, what do you mean? That's short? What are you talking about? Here's the thing: when you do this as a job, yeah, it's not going to be that long per se. But I think to the regular consumer who plays a game 1 or 2 hours a day, maybe three, probably if they're really pushing it. That's at least a week of gameplay for them, or a week to complete the game. And we're not even talking about actually completing said game by the new game plus, if it has it. I know they had that in Wilds, not Wilds, in Worlds, so I would think they'll have the same for Wilds, but it's ridiculous.
Getting enough materials from any initial encounters to keep my gear up to snuff and jump right from one mission to the next. When you compare that to the 40 plus hours it took to see the end of the story in World, it feels like the intent is to allow more people to quote-unquote beat Wilds. And I certainly appreciate how that shift toward approachability might appeal to anyone who has been traditionally intimidated by the series. But as a veteran, I can't help but be a little disappointed that I literally didn't get knocked out once in that entire time. There's never a skill or armor testing wall of a monster that forced me to really consider my equipment choices more deeply in order to earn the reward of a hard-fought victory. Avoiding spoilers, there is, of course, more to do once you get past the credits. That's where the larger changes Wilds makes to the traditional Monster Hunter loop really start to shine. Gone are the days of returning to a separate town between every hunt, then going down the same checklist of tasks before you're ready for the next one. Pretty much everything you need is out in the field with you, and you're never more than a lickety-split loading screen away from whichever beautiful area you want to be in.
The environment looks
Adjustments
really
are
nice.
all over the place, like food buffs being tied to a timer now that sticks around between hunts. It doesn't even tick down while in camp, making a previously repetitive process substantially smoother without removing the depth it added to hunts.
Nothing like home cooking.
Dude, I swear to God, dude, they made these girls way too attractive. They knew what they were doing. They absolutely knew what they were doing. But you know what? Let's do what is it? Let's give a W to the devs of how detailed that they do for what is it for food. I have no idea what it is, but food and like anime with food, they just go in such incredible detail. I have no idea why that is, especially for this one in particular for Monster Hunter.
Roaringly successful result of those changes is that a vast majority of the friction past games could produce as you start and stop and restart between every encounter has been removed. Now you can just check your map for monster information and go hunt. The monsters you'll face are also generally excellent. That could be a flashy newcomer like the flamenco-inspired Lalabarina,
Ooh,
or
that
Wild's
looks
headliner
interesting.
Arkveld and its chain-like appendages. But the true stunner has to be New Udra. The tentacles of Monster Hunter's first octopus-like creature
that's
can be as
cool.
unpredictable to contend with as you might expect, especially when they're literally on fire. And the satisfaction of severing every single one of them over the course of a hunt is second to none. The appeal of Monster Hunter's fights has always been how it empowers you with flashy moves and hard-hitting attacks,
Okay.
but knowing when to strike and where to stand and how the monster will behave next is just as
To me, it looks like a really fun. Like it looks fun. Like yeah, it just looks like another Monster Hunter. I feel like Monster Hunter is one of those games where it's like similar to Call of Duty, where it's like if you played one of them, you play them all. But yeah, I feel like Wilds would be another great contender for a newcomer to the series to play the game.
important as figuring out which buttons to press. That's true in Wilds too, but combat is also more flexible and forgiving here. For example, you can adjust your footing a little more mid-combo, resulting in fewer moments where a mistimed attack with a long animation had me embarrassingly slicing at the air.
Yeah, that's a normal thing for the
In
game.
many ways, the combat feels like it's all about the new wound system this time. Wounds open up once you deal enough damage to a given body part, and then you'll deal extra damage when attacking them. But deal enough damage to a wound and it'll break, resetting that spot. Every weapon also has a simple-to-execute focus.
The wounding system. I mean, maybe they're saying this for people who are new to the series or new to the game, but the wounding system has been. I remember this being in Worlds, so this is not a new thing. But I do remember this being also being part of the older Monster Hunters as well. So I don't really know. I don't think this person knows that this is not a new system, or at least um this has always been a standard for the series, so I don't know.
Strike that will deal a burst of damage to a wound and break it right away. So maximizing the amount of time you leave one open and then using that finisher before it closes naturally is an interesting subgame to manage.
I think that in particular, I
Or
think that's
at least
new.
it
So okay,
would be if Wilds ever presented me with a challenge that pushed me to make those considerations. Whether I was playing online or solo, I've never had a mission reach the 20-minute mark, and I've only fainted 2 times total across dozens of hours. Compare that to World, which had real
wait, didn't he just say earlier that he never fainted Wait, didn't he just say earlier that he never fainted at all in the review? Didn't he just say that, or did he mean like losing entirely?
tests like Kieran, who smacked me silly my first couple of attempts, forcing me to regroup and craft an armor set around thunder resistance. And it's hard not to feel
Yeah.
like Capcom's desire to make this a more inviting Monster Hunter sanded off some of the bumps I actually enjoyed in terms of overcoming big threats. Things do ramp up a little bit in the
Well, granted, you are using the scythe, which is a very agile weapon. Believe me, I know this. I've used this in Worlds, my guy.
post game, but even there I only really had to
Was
worry
it
about
Worlds?
upgrading
Or
my
was it-
armor
what was the
or
other
falling
one?
behind in damage once or twice during the content that's available at launch. After the 15 hours it took me to beat the campaign, I only had to spend another 15 to finish every side quest that wasn't about catching fish, and just 5 more after that before I had the
Okay.
best armor set and weapon I could get and a pretty solid suite of skill boosting decorations. To be fair, I still have plenty more equipment I could grind for, but my usual desire to get the top tier weapon of each elemental type and put together specialized outfits for certain challenging fights just isn't here this time, because those
You know, what's the funny thing is that at a certain point, Monster Hunter just makes it where that, um, it doesn't. It's like Dark Souls, where it doesn't even matter what armor set that you get or put. It's the matter of how good does it look. It's mainly what it comes to at the end of the Monster Hunter. Uh, what is it? At the end of the game,
Fights
that's the
aren't
true
here
end
either.
game.
I think a lot of this comes down to raw numbers that could hypothetically be tweaked in one of the many patches that are sure to come. But some of what makes things so easy also seems to be baked into the bones of Wilds. For example, nearly every time you focus strike a wound, the monster gets locked into a little stagger animation, and you'll be breaking wounds a lot. Meanwhile, on the crafting side of things, my hunt for the best armor was way shorter than I ever expected because materials that are usually super rare can sometimes show up as guaranteed rewards when looking at the monster list on your map. That was excitingly convenient initially, but it's also what brought that loot chase to an almost trivially fast end.
Perfection.
I imagine this difficulty tuning will get a lot more people through the front door, but it also means that where my past 3 Monster Hunter reviews wrapped up around the 50 to 60 hour mark while I still had plenty more I was excited to do, I started losing steam with Wilds before I even hit 40. Don't get me wrong, that's still a healthy chunk of game.
That's a long time. Yeah.
And it has absolutely been some of the most fun I've had with the series. I'm also sure any longtime fans will be thinking, well, we just have to wait for updates or G-Rank or whatever for the real challenge. But in that regard, Capcom's own roadmap has left me wary. There's only 1 monster scheduled to be added for all of spring, and then only 1 currently listed for summer. In contrast, Rise also felt slight at launch, but got 6 new monsters just 1 month later, and then 3 more a month after that.
Oh, that's what it was called. It was called Rise. It wasn't Worlds. It was Rise.
Wilds already feels like it needs endgame threats like its formidable Elder Dragons to really push its limits. And if it instead only gets 1 returning monster in the first 3 or so months after launch, this could be a long wait until its inevitable expansion.
I think it's because maybe actually I have no idea. It is very interesting though. I think it is. It would be a little bit worrisome if it's gonna take them a long time to bring like new monsters and such. But you got to remember, Monster Hunter Rise was technically a Switch. I believe that was supposed to be a Switch game, and then they migrated that into consoles and PC later down the line. I think like a year later when the exclusivity ran out. But ever since then, yeah, I guess they were able to go crazy with it. But granted, you are talking about a game that used lower infrastructure that I'm pretty sure it would have been a lot more easier for them to even manage and build upon because they don't have to go in such depth and details compared to some of the other stuff that they've done for their other games, even this one as well. Probably. This is in speculation, of course.
That all said, Wilds deserves credit for being what has got to be one of the most customizable games I have ever played. There's a huge host of accessibility features. You can adjust the size of or turn off individual elements on your UI, you have more control than ever over your menus and radio wheels, and you can alter the look of stuff like your mount, chat stickers, and even fast travel tents to a surprising degree. As a crowning touch, you can finally wear any version of each armor set too, essentially doubling the cosmetic options previously available as you get into the all-important fashion side of things towards the end. Partying up online has also been made more robust, letting you run around each map with your friends and seamlessly flow from hunt to hunt without having to regroup at camp between each mission. And even if you're largely planning to...
Thank goodness. I tried doing this game with Rise with my friend and things like that, and just... It was such, I've never understood why they just don't let you just be in the group consistently. And I'm so glad in this one, it looks like they made that more easier, or at least in my mind. I hope that they did make it more easier where you could just consistently play with your friends instead of just having a bounty set up and then they have to accept that bounty or whatever. I don't know. I hated that in Rise.
Play solo, there are quality of life changes here for you too. That could be the surprisingly competent AI support hunters that fill empty spots in your party when you fire an SOS flare, but also the inclusion of an online single-player option that lets you fire flares to get help, but still pause the action entirely before you do.
All right,
Monster Hunter Wilds
awesome.
continues to smooth off the rougher corners of the series in smart ways, reducing as much friction as possible that could get in the way of you grabbing any of its exceptionally fun weapons and planting them firmly in a monster's hide. But in that quest to make Monster Hunter more approachable, Wilds is sliced a little too close to the bone in some places, trimming its challenge back so much that I barely needed to engage with its in-depth equipment system at all this time to become an apex predator. Its more flexible combat is still some of the most fun I've had with the series, but like the blustering lightning storms of its gorgeous desert, it burns brightly but briefly until Capcom unleashes some real...
Like, to me, for what it sounds like that he likes it the way how it was. But it's just, it doesn't capture as it did before, which is fine. It's just a matter of, is it enjoyable? Is it good? Maybe later down the line they will make it more difficult when newer different updates come out in the future. This could be just a stepping stone of everything else they could probably do in the future, hands down.
Endgame beasts to challenge us.
Okay.
For more, check out our reviews of Avowed or Like a Dragon Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii. And for everything else, stick with IGN.
Okay. So even though, interestingly enough, even though he had all these issues with the game, but still gave it an 8, which is interesting because it's like he's had so many kind of negative things and qualms about the game, but still gave it an 8, which doesn't make sense to me. I would kind of expect it to be like a 7 or maybe like a 6 for this guy, because it sounds like he really didn't enjoy the game a whole lot. But okay. So he gave it an 8. Okay. But it's just interesting though. Like the review, the everything he was saying about it, he's saying it as if it was so negative. Like he didn't enjoy it really at all. Any of the process. He mentioned that it was short. Like it was much more shorter. The armor was the gathering of the one things is not as it's a significantly more easier, and all the other stuff. It's like it doesn't bother me that games do this, because I'm like, sure, because sometimes even myself, I want to try out different armors and things like that, and have it to go out of my way to go like hours and all that stuff to get some of these things. I'm glad that I'm able to do it, and like in a fewer number of hunts. But do you know the thing about it is that he only used one specific weapon. It's like, why haven't you used the long sword or the or what is it, or the what's it called, the double edge axe or the hammer or any other ones? Like you mainly use the scythe. And here's the thing, I've used the scythe as well, and the scythe, it's a very easy weapon and it does quite a bit of damage. So maybe he could have been using a weapon that was maybe broken or something like that. I mean, who knows? Or maybe the devs are just, what is it? They're just letting you guys build up your things, and then when the real thing comes out later down the line, that's when the real challenge of the game comes out. I mean, they've done it before with in Worlds, and and Wilds as not Wilds, and Rise as well. It's like everything you knew, and then they threw out the new stuff. You're like, oh, oh shit. But anyway, yeah, man, it's just, I mean, it's great. You know, it's good. He give it an 8, but it's just ridiculous that he has so much negative things to say, but yet he's like, yeah, it's an 8. It's like, okay. I mean, it's like me talking very negatively about it's like if I talk really badly about what was that game that came out, Call of Duty Vanguard. That game sucks. It's like I've talked about it so negatively, and but like, yeah, it's a pretty good game. You know, campaign short. Was in the multiplayer. What is the multiplayer? It's very unpackful. It's everything blends with each other, and all that stuff, and talk about it very negatively, and then you're just like, it's you know what, I gave it like a solid 9. It's like, what? Okay, sure. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. Man, I never really thought that I don't really watch IGN reviews, but it's just interesting that someone giving I'd be understandable if he gave it like a 7 or like or at least a 6, like 6.5 or something like that, because it's just like it felt like like a lot of things that this person didn't, like, this game didn't meet a lot of the check boxes that he liked about in the other ones, and that was really it, and yet still give it a high rating. Like, it just doesn't make sense. It's like, how do you speak something so negative throughout your review, and yet you give it a pretty high rating? It doesn't make sense. But hey, I hope to get this game myself. But anyway, maybe I will someday. But anyways, thank you so much for watching. Hope you guys liked the video. Subscribe and check out the Discord. And I've been playing through the Kakarot game, and I don't think I'll be playing it through today. I'll probably be playing it more tomorrow, but I guess we'll see what happens. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. I'll check you guys next time. Peace.